Hi! I had put off learning how to make molds for a really long time because I thought it was intimidating and I thought it was too complex and too... But at a certain point I dived into it and it actually isn't that hard indeed. But I learned a lot. So I'm giving you some insights and information about what I've learned so far, and maybe that will help you to start molding yourself. That's it, I guess. Okay, so the easiest mold would be to make a single mold. And this is when you have like a flat surface and not too complicated, not a lot of stuff sticking out, it's pretty flat. Like make a mold box and then you just pour in the silicones, and when you have your mold, this is the area where you pour in. It's pretty easy. This one and this little thing are examples of single molds. They're like really easy to release, but there are things to think about. Okay, so I wanted to learn how to make molds because I had this idea of making my own chess set. So I sculpted these, and obviously there were things I didn't know, I didn't consider. So that's why I'm sharing some insights with you. Let's take the queen as an example. So you have your model or your master, and you want to capture the space around it. So you make a little box, a mold box, where you pour in your silicones, and then you have your mold. Here's the feet, here's the head. But your mold is upside down because you poured the silicones, it hardens, and then here's the hole to pour in your material. So it's upside down. Upside down. So if you pour your material in the mold and the level will rise and rise and rise and rise, there's a point where it cannot rise anymore here. And that's where you get air. It cannot escape, it just will stuck here. And then your casting will just miss this little point of the nose, and there's like more problem areas. I will show you the inside of the mold, and this is a cut mold, so you kind of have to see where's the cuts. Here it is. For this one I made 2 cuts. It explains itself just by seeing it. It got a lot of areas where just bubbles will get stuck and have nowhere to go. There are ways to resolve it by just you pour in the material and you just make sure that the liquid like just gets everywhere. That's how you prevent those sockets. Bubble sockets. Now this queen is also a good example. When you try to release your mold or your model and try to get it out, this is much bigger and wider than this part. So this will not, you cannot just pull that through this tiny hole. And that's why I made cuts in it. So when I release it, it has more space to get out. There will still be some like problems. For instance, this little guy had 2 eyes. Well, here's one eye. And as you can see, it's much wider at the top than here. So it got stuck in there when I tried to release this model, and it broke off. that also gives me some information when I'm making the castings and trying to release them from the molds. I make castings with Jesmonite and it gets warm, and when it is cooled off you can release your mold, but it's still very, very fragile. I tried that really carefully and it didn't always work, and I will show you. Okay, so here we got two of the guys that I poured. I don't know if you can tell, but this one broke off and I kind of glued it on with a drop of Jesmonite, and it actually looks pretty good. So in this case it didn't really was a problem, but it's something to keep in mind when you're picking your models or making your models. Okay, something about cut molds. This was my this chest set was my first project. I really wasn't aware that I had to make cut molds, because I thought like, okay, I will just pour the material and I will just get them out. But it just doesn't work that way. Because I told you like this is wider than the bottom. So I had to make cuts, and it's not like, okay, let's do a straight line, but you like make a sort of zigzag movement, so it like perfectly goes back and you hardly see where you cut, and that's like perfect. Well, if you would just do a straight line, it's almost impossible to get it exactly back on the right place. And the advantage of this is that you will hardly get any lines visible. Let me see. Well, this one you can see. Well, in this case, I don't mind. You know, I really don't mind. I don't think it's a problem. But in some cases, you want to like sand it, and then you will be able to remove it. Okay, this white queen, it has a cut that goes here, all the way up. And here you don't see anything. The only place you see a little bit is here, and it just really depends on how the shading or how the light is falling. Well, on the other side, you see a little bit here, and here you do see it a little bit. Now, talking about cut molds and air bubbles, this is also a good example. I made this one before I even thought about the idea of molding. And I made some adjustments. I don't know if you can see it, but I put some monster clay under his tongue because there was a lot of space here, and that would give a lot of trouble. There's a big chance that you would like tear off the tongue when it would snap off. What I told you about the pouring and the air bubbles, like if the level rises, this is where the air gets stuck. So I try to add some clay here, so it would be easier for me to like hold the mold a bit like this when I pour and pour and pour until I know like, okay, now it's in the tongue, and then I let the level rise up, and then I hold it straight again. And the other thing is, well, because it's a pretty huge thing, and also with the ice, it could easily get stuck in the mold when releasing. I thought it would be good to make a cut to make it easier to release. And I thought this would be a good idea to get that line here. So when I cut, I try to like cut it over here, which worked out pretty good. As you can see, it starts here and it goes all the way. Well, it's hard to see because it fits so well, but believe me, there's a cut. And I can show you in the two pieces that I poured. You can hardly see where I cut. So this one came out so well. Here's another one I did. Well, and here is, I think this was the first one I poured when I realized, okay, I need to like tilt the mold more to get the liquid in here because it's missing the tip of its tongue. But also this one, you hardly can see that line where I cut. Well, I cannot see it anymore. Now, I talked about snapping earlier on. Jesmonite, after it's fully cured, after 24 hours, it's like super, super hard. But, like I said, in the beginning, it's very, very fragile. I poured like 10 dragonflies out of these and 2 times it snapped. I'm so sad about this one. I just wasn't patient enough and I just wanted to get it out and I heard it like snap. So yeah, something to keep in mind when you're releasing, to like take it easy, take your time and wait until the material is cooled off. And now I want to show you some pieces that I think are, for me as a beginner and maybe even for a professional, impossible to mold. A lot of holes in here and it probably goes all the way to the back, and this will be a really big problem. And the holes we could resolve by filling them up with something like monster clay, but then still there would be another problem, and that's the ears. The ears are really big, and this is a lot wider than this. That one you could also like try to resolve by making a cut mold. But yeah, it's not ideal. Yeah, this one would also be a really big challenge for me as a beginner. If I would make a mold with the leaf, then you would have here this place where the silicones would go in and it would just be stuck. You wouldn't, like, here, my fingers are the silicones, bloop, and it's like stuck, and you just wouldn't be able to get it out. And maybe if you, yeah, I don't know. And then there's this little arm, would be a perfect spot for bubbles. And then the head. Well, obviously the head is like really, really white. And then there's this one. Now, if you made the mold, you would have to like get this out. Would not be possible. I know there's other ways to make molds, like you could make a mold in 2 pieces. To me, that's just way too complicated at the moment. Maybe I will learn in the future, but at this point, I guess it's impossible. The last one, I'm just making such a mess of it. Look, it's just even too big. It's too big. Yeah, I'm really, really happy with this one. It's a combination of an ostrich, chameleon, and a turtle with chameleon eyes. Imagine if you had to make a mold box for this one. Like walls from here to here, this tall. Imagine how much space around it takes up. All the silicones you had to pour in, that would be just insane. And then the other thing, it's like this tail and the hole in the mouth. I could fill that up with monster clay. And then the head would be too big to get out, and could make a cut. But I don't know, maybe this would also be something for a 2-piece mold. Yeah, but for me, it's totally out of my reach. Now, like I said, the first thing I did, the first project of molding, were these chess set pieces, and I made the boxes out of foam board. And I was left with a lot of pieces like that. It was really hard to release them, even with the mold release. So these are like pieces that I don't know what to do with it. I just really want to have as little as how do you say that? Zero waste. I want zero waste. That's why I now make the mold boxes out of clay, which I showed in a previous video. But another thing about zero waste. I have silicones here, part A, part B. I mix them in the same mixing bowl. I see a lot of people taking a cup for this and a cup for that and pour it in a cup, and you throw away a lot of cups. So I mix the silicones in the same bowl. So when the silicones start to cure, it's just really easy to just take it out of the bowl, your leftover silicones, and your bowl is clean again. And then you could cut it into little pieces. So for instance, you're making molds and you're pouring silicones and you have too little, you could just add little pieces of this. So I save this because I can use it again. Any final thoughts? Any final thoughts? Yes, I have final thoughts. Here's a little tip. Make some little molds, just tiny things. It could be like something that you could you can hang it around your neck. For those times where you have material left and feel like, oh, what do I need to do with it? Oh, I have some little molds left and I will just pour a little of these earrings. And the other thing, something to think about, sort of thing. There is already so much stuff in the world, and nowadays it's like everyone can like make things and pour things and sculpt things, and everyone is just selling their stuff on everywhere. And you have a hobby, it's great, you have a hobby, but do you really need to sell it? And it's not like, I don't mean it in an arrogant way, you know. It's just out of the thought of there is already so much stuff in the world. Do we need to add to it? So when I was thinking about what shall I make, because I love creating and I love to sculpt, I wanted to make something that is useful and that people can use and reuse and have fun with. That's the same idea with this one. It has use. You can like store something that you really like. To me, it is something that I would buy and that I like. Just think about, does the world need it? Is it useful? Would I buy it? Would I be happy with it if someone gave it to me, you know? So yeah, that's something I really wanted to say, and hope you will think about it. And okay, that's it for now. There's a lot of things that I can still talk about, but I will save it for other videos. And see you next time.